Soul Butter, a tiny talk about big things. So much talk, so little makes sense these days. What do you do when something much wiser than the mind you use to get through a day starts talking to you? A voice beyond what's familiar. And how can you make it work for you beyond the spin in this world? Start listening today. Join Susan Gabriel from the inside out with special guests, songs, students, and stories as we introduce Soul Butter, a tiny talk about big things. Light notes from the SuzeMuze. So everybody, welcome to a new edition of SuzeMuze.Studio, Susie Pod. We're calling this Soul Butter. And we've got a very soulful guest today who I have worked with over the years. His name is Jay Goodley. Welcome him to the platform. Yay, Jay. So I am your host, Susan Gabriel, and we're glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Jay and I go back a few years to when he was, I met him as an agent when I was on location in Florida for a period of time. And it turned out that his roots were in music and also in television. So we crossed over a few states in that interesting history. And I worked with Jay as an artist, and he was a terrific agent to work with. And
thank you.
My pleasure. We continue to know one another, and he's been a wonderful support to a lot of the projects, both the charitable project and the music arts curriculum that some of you might be familiar with that comes out of SuzeMuze.Studio, and also my state of performance from New York to LA that has crossed over into tour and residencies in towns and cities across America to integrate what's going on locally with other levels of states of performance. And Jay's been a really big fan of all of that. So I want to really welcome him today and talk to him. Jay, one of the things that is the priority here at SuzeMuze.Studio is not the idea, but the reality of the essential quality of arts in commerce, arts in the world, and how we have divorced ourselves from it, and then we buy it back, if you will. We take it out of the system, then we put it back in the system when it's really inside us. The state of rhythm is in a person, in your heart, and your voice is a song, and your life is a story, which is a lyric. And as you know, some people develop into professional entertainers, and other people don't think they're musical or don't think they're artistic, when my contention is that it could be a very viable resource. The imagination could be something we rely on rather than just use it as a point of reference. And I really believe it could be better all the way around for community. And I was wondering, since you're out there among them and you've been on both sides of the camera and both sides of the state of performance and production, what are your thoughts about how essential arts is? Because to me, it should be fundamental, not extracurricular, especially in our schools.
Well, I think that everybody has a little bit of artist in them, everybody. And it's waiting to come out for a lot. But if the educational system, if people like yourself can bring it out of one or two people, then your project is a success. I still believe that the best artists in this world are undiscovered. They're sitting at home and they're playing their piano and they're writing stuff, but they're afraid to go out and perform it. They're afraid to let people listen to it because they have this fear of, being scrutinized and, rejection and all that stuff. And I wish there was a course called artist psychology, where the artists or the people could be taught that, hey, go out and give it the best you can. Go what's in your heart. Don't try to copy somebody. Go out and do your own art. And who cares who scrutinized it? You know, when I got into singing in bands, I had just left my 7th year of football at Oklahoma State. And I was undersized and underspeedy and, you know, and I had played, 7 years up until that point pretty successfully, and I loved the game. But I realized that um, I wasn't good enough to, go on to the pro level or even play college football because I just didn't have it. I loved the game, but I discovered music, and I figured, oh, what the hell? Let's go up and try to sing a song. And I auditioned for my first band and made it. And wow, that just changed my whole life. But until that point, I wasn't really ready, or I didn't have enough confidence to get in front of a microphone. But once I did it, and guys went, hey, that's pretty good. Why don't we try this song? I went, holy hell, I'm in. This is great. And just developed it from there. So I don't know. I think it's fear. I think it's apprehension, personal apprehension that the artists have that is like a stop sign in their world. And people like yourself, people in the educational arts and music field, they're the folks that are important. They're the folks who can bring it out of this inbred talent, this talent that people want to come out. And that's very important. That's why the education of art and music is so important to the world, so important to people as individuals, and just so important to the artists.
It's interesting you say that, because when I was in Florida, you might remember, on a gig I would just have a gig where I'd be entertaining an audience. It was a work for hire. And when every chance I had, I would take my elementary and high school kids out to the gig that I was playing.
Right.
Everything from my original stuff that people enjoyed, to Cole Porter, to the jazz thing. And these kids it was hilarious. I had this group you might remember called Big Voices, Little Guitars, with their
ukulele. The ukulele group. Yeah.
Yeah. And they would come out, and their parents would tell me, well, they went to school today, and one of their friends said, want to have a sleepover? And they said, no, I've got a gig tonight. And we're talking about a 3rd grader. It was hilarious.
That's great.
Yeah. And then they come out to the job, and they have such pride, and I would coach them on stage, talk about jazz improvisation. They'd never heard like Leon Redbone version of Ain't Misbehaving, but there's one brought his snare drum and he kicked the shuffle. I mean, he had it down. And the other ones with their little jazz eggs, I'd have them waving around, sort of paint a picture with that percussion when I'm doing a Dr. John version of Moondance or something. And then we had their choral work. So it was very hip and happening. And but it was a communion of energy from amateur to professional, where the professional is in service, like you're talking about, of the fledgling talent.
Right.
And don't you think that in addition to helping unknown and undiscovered, as you so beautifully put, artists come forward, it's also a way to reach everybody, whether they ever become professional, gain a sense of themselves and a confidence that we see missing in a lot of today's youth?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And one thing I think, when the artist or the person, the participant, let's just say, in making music, grasps the concept, hey, this is fun, that's when it really hits, like, okay, if I don't sound that good, damn, I'm having fun doing this anyway. And that's what really, really counts with, say, 99% of the people, because 99% of the people are not going to make a dollar getting up on stage and doing anything, but they can have fun. They can have fun at home. They can have fun by themselves. They can have fun at parties. They can just have fun as a participant in the arts, whether they're a writer, a singer, piano player, whatever. They can have fun. And that is the bottom line with art: expression and fun.
It's funny you say that. I said funny. Get it? Funny.
I got that play on words, Susan.
Yeah, right. So because we have a thing called fundamentals, we capitalize the word fun. The fundamentals of theory, music theory, for many people is a terrifying idea because they think it's a very distant sort of math problem, when really it's very fundamental to the organism of a human being. And you've put that beautifully just now. And you had a funny phrase that you used one time when we were in chat with each other about I play with words like fundamental, and you brought up robot.
Right. And that is my phrase that pays. Robot, if you're just copying, if you're just trying to play like the guy next door, or like you heard on, well, I heard it on the radio, or I want to play exactly like that. You're becoming a robot. And the first three letters of robot, of course, are rob. And what that is doing is robbing you of your personal expression and your personal integrity to what you're doing. And as I say, fundamentals and fun, that is the bottom line with being an expressive artist in any way.
And you've been having that. You were an agent. You were the most well-known agent of most of Florida for many, many years.
Oh,
You
geez.
yourself were a rock star. And then, and you were a total, you were such a kind-hearted agent, I might add, and really you could tell that you love your clients, you love musicians, and you were very respectful to the environments in terms of servicing exactly what the venue wanted. But your kindness was really what struck me, having worked all over the country. And then the other thing I noticed is that once you moved forward from that career, you then, for fun, started a band with a bunch of guys. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, right after I sold my business, and after you have a business that you run for 35 years, you go, what's going to happen now? And I was just being true to myself, saying, what makes me happy? Well, I love to wrestle, but body was getting a little old for that. So I said, I'm going to start a band, and I'm going to start a band with the guys that I really like, the guys that I like the way they played, the guys that were the easiest to get along with, and start a band and just have some fun. So I started the Rock and Rogues, and picked out guys that had worked for me: Bob Fiebert, Stan Crawford, Tom Hayden, and Sean Phillips. And we all started working together. Within 3 weeks, we were playing out. These guys were so good, and they carried me. There's no question. They carried me at the time, and I just had fun. The band lasted 7 years, and it only went down for physical reasons. With three of us had some issues, and I don't think the Rogues are going to ever play again, except maybe one of our house parties. But 7 years in a band in Florida is like millenniums for a band to last. It's the longest band I've ever been in. Most of the duration of the bands I've been in, I averaged it out, are 18 months. So and that's probably a pretty good estimate of what bands. But yeah, I just said, what am I going to do now? My business is sold. I don't want to do any more weddings. And shook that off and said, what can I do for fun? And I've had, for the last 7 years, a blast rocking and rolling and having really good responsive crowds in front of me. And that's the bottom line with being an artist. And I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself a performer up there, and then go back and sit in the seat and saying, man, thank you, God. That was really fun to do that. And I'm looking forward to the next set.
Well, we sat in our few tunes together. Well,
Yeah.
that your gig, or was that something we did for the community? What was that?
The gig that we did together was in the old KMI building at the Venice Center Mall. And it was like an anniversary celebration for the building. The building was opened up, I think, in 1927 or something. It's the San Marco Hotel. And then it became a condo, which I had owned two businesses in had my offices in there, but it was an anniversary for that. And you and I had maybe 1 hour, 2 hour practice, and we went in, we killed it for about 3 hours and got a good response and went back and forth. You'd sing a song, I'd sing a song. That was a fun gig for me. That was really fun.
It was fun, yeah. Yeah, all around, you are a total musical character in the world. And that's what I think is so much fun for me to ask you these questions about the essentials of art, because in Soul Butter, which is one of the elements of the new podcast series that SuzeMuze.Studio is putting out on various platforms, the idea is to really go take a deep dive into what's underneath what everybody's busy doing out there, and what works, what doesn't, and what could we have more of. And it seems to me that the arts really makes for a softer landing in so many ways in the world in terms of people's ability to navigate a day. If you're engaged in something, you use the word fun. If you're engaged in something that I think it's just natural and that opens a person up to who they really are and the dimensions of who they really are as a human being. One of the things that we've talked about before as well is how, while the technology of the mass market, which is an interesting word, mass, has outreach, it also tends to minimize the value of the individualized person, which is something that comes back to what you started in this conversation when you talked about the undiscovered person at home playing the piano that nobody knows about. And the media that we have now can put people out there, but can also cause people to forget about the full dimension, the full scope of what being a person is. So that
right. I really, you've hit something, an interesting point. I used to have musicians come to me and say, yeah, I'm a one-man band. I go, oh, you are? And they go, yeah, I've got all this background stuff. I said, I can, sounds like a Hammond B3, and then we can flip it to a Fender Rhodes 88 piano, and then I've got horns behind me, and I've got strings behind me, and blah, blah, blah. And most of the time I'd say, hey, that's real good. I'm not interested. I'd rather hear a cat play, or a lady, whoever, play a piano and sing. Maybe a beatbox, something, but not too much, because too much is too much to me, and it takes the authenticity. Then you're doing a karaoke act, which, hey, all you karaoke lovers out there, it gives you the ability to get in front of folks and sing. I'm not knocking karaoke, but when I send a performer out, I want them to be a genuine performer and perform on their own volition. I want them to, I'd rather hear, a couple people on guitar, a couple people on like piano and percussion, just somebody doing it, making their own music. All that background stuff and all that technology, it doesn't impress me one bit. I don't like it. I don't like to go and they go, oh, they've got two people there and they sound like full orchestra. Count me out. I'm gone.
It's sort of like what's happened to concerts, where now it's tens of thousands, and the concert is watching someone on a video screen because they're too tiny to see.
Yeah.
But you paid $150 to $10,000, depending on what day you bought your ticket and who you bought it from.
That's another interesting concept. Concerts. I will not pay that kind of money to go see anybody. Now, if the Beatles or Elvis came back, yeah, those two, I'd go see. Yeah, I'd take my checking account, but to go see somebody get up there, and half the time, and not half the time, but a lot of the time, they're lip syncing.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Jay Goodley. We'll hear more from him as the series goes on and bring him back into some fabulous conversations. I want to ask Jay one more question. If you were going to take the deep dive, how would you describe music and how its place in our world? Like, what is what is the magic? Where does it come from? What are your thoughts about the mystery, what music can do that words can't?
Well, I'm not going to go into any hokey, oh, it's so inspirational and all. Music makes people feel good. That's the bottom line. What's the first thing you do when you leave a job, when you leave school? You get in your car and you put on any source. Now it's downloaded stuff from your phone. Okay, you listen to your favorite stuff. A couple of years ago, it was CDs. Before that, it was cassettes. Before that, it was 8-tracks. And if you didn't have that, you had your radio stations, your favorite radio station. Music is something that you want to hear, something that makes you feel good after you've done your toil or your work and all that. It lifts you up when you're going, I've been working for 8 hours, so let's crank the radio and the Rolling Stones or Yes comes on, or something that'll inspire your mind, your body, your whole thought process. Music's inspiring, music's relaxing, music is put you in that feel good. And without music, and I'll tell you, and it's a tragic thing that they're cutting music from the schools. They're cutting curriculum with music and the arts. And once again, they're creating robots, people to follow, get in the assembly line of work, sit in your little pod and do whatever you can to make this corporation more money. Sorry, folks, that's crap. That's not what it's all about. What it's all about is music that balances. It balances your head. It balances your heart. It balances the whole system of living. And without it, we are that robot. And I don't want to be, and I know you don't want to be.
Well, you definitely are not. And we want to thank Jay Goodley for connecting with us and helping us connect to what is essential, which is in the arts. And give a nice round of applause.
Soul Butter, a tiny talk about big things.
Oh, thank you so much, Jay Goodley. Well, that was really a lot of fun. And we'd like to thank our guests for joining us for this early edition of Soul Butter, a tiny talk on big things. I'm your host, Susan Gabriel, aka the Suze Muse, which is my handle pretty much all over social media. And we'd like to invite you all to come back and join us for the next edition. You can also get the original music that you hear embracing each episode. Go to our website, SuzeMuze.Studio, or join us for the video portion on our brand new channel on YouTube, SuzeMuze.Studio TV. See you next time.
Light notes from the Suze Muse.
Thank you for having me.